Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about gear and gear for the gigging singer-songwriter. And I've tried to do this a couple different ways, and I tried to merge a couple different ideas together, and it wound up being like it was going on like a 30-minute video. So I want to just strike right at the heart of this and sort of tease you with some concepts, and then maybe I'll do some follow-up videos that go into a little bit greater detail about um, some options beyond that. So, what gear do you need as a gigging singer songwriter? And conversely, what gear or lack thereof is holding you back? I'm moved to do this because I see some talented singer songwriters who are kind of moving in the same circles as me, playing some of the same venues as me, where I notice that they have made some choices that I think either this part of their gig isn't happening and it's sort of cutting them out, excluding them from other opportunities that they'd be well suited for, or it's holding them back when they get to those locations that they are qualified for because their gear isn't quite up to the task. So, number one thing that you as a gigging singer songwriter need, and I'm going to condense this to singer songwriter is someone who's singing and accompanying themselves on an acoustic guitar, even though I fully recognize that this actually covers a panoply of other options, including things that I myself do, like singing and drumming, singing and playing piano. And there are people who sing and play ukulele or whatever your instrument is. Let's talk, number one, first and foremost, about that instrument. You need to have, if it's a guitar, you need to have a really good quality, reliable acoustic electric guitar. The name of the game here is reliable. That's the adjective we love today. It's stuff that we can count on, but also the acoustic electric. You need to show up where whatever we're doing to amplify your voice, we can do the same thing to amplify your acoustic guitar. This is by far the preferable option over you don't have an acoustic electric, and if you don't know what I mean by that, I just mean an acoustic guitar that has an internal pickup that you can plug into any PA, and away you go. If you don't have that, let's say you have your grandfather, you've got your this vintage guild, and you'd be remiss to commit the war crime of drilling into it to put a pickup in. I hear you, but you're going to create some new challenges for yourself, namely that not everybody that you encounter, not every sound person, not every person running sound is going to be up to the task of miking your guitar, or you might not be up to the task of miking your guitar. If you have an all steel string guitar, wow. Somebody just doesn't want the truth to come out on this one, but if you have an all steel string guitar, you can use a sound hole pickup. I've had terrible sound hole pickups, and I've had one that I love. There are probably other good ones, but I'll recommend the one that I personally know that I've loved, which is the Lawrence A245C. Yep, A245C. This is the one that I carried with me as part of my open stage, my open stage rig, because people show up to open stages and they don't have acoustic electric guitars. This is my absolute preferred number two. My plan B is the Lawrence. It's a humbucking pickup. It's a nice clean signal. It's a hot, strong signal, high fidelity. It's the next best thing to having an acoustic electric. So this is my second option, and then failing that, you're gonna have to mic that guitar. So if this is you we're talking about, you better have a mic you like for miking your guitar and a stand for miking it, because you're gonna have to do that every single time, and you can't count on everyone to have the know-how or the gear. So I can point you to some of the know-how, a video I put together of like just the most basic version of like the guiding principles of how to mic an acoustic guitar without getting a lot of feedback and getting a pretty strong signal. And I'll make a couple recommendations for gear. So the Shure SM94 is my go-to. This does require phantom power or a battery, a AA battery. You gotta unscrew this and this has to be powered, is the point. But this is a pencil condenser that's going to have a really nice signal. This is the one I use in that video, and you can hear for yourself what kind of good results you can get with it. A dynamic option that I like, sort of this is my top dynamic option that I personally have used to mic instruments is the the Audio-Technica ATM29HE. These, they are no longer manufactured, but they can be found used for usually pretty reasonable prices. And these are a great, very tight pattern instrument mic. Love this thing. It's been a real find for me, and it's my, if I have to mic two instruments at once, then here's what I use. I use this for one and this for the other. So, beyond your guitar, and I'll give you an example of a guitar I like. It doesn't have to be like the, I guess one more thing about the guitar. This doesn't mean you have to get like a $2,000 Taylor. Although $2,000 Taylors are beautiful and nice, and they're wonderful and they're amazing. I myself have found a lot of mileage out of pretty reasonably priced things. In fact, so I've used like the Breedport Passport. For a long time I used Ibanez. I used an Ibanez Performance that was a great guitar. I've used an Ibanez Artwood that I love. That has probably the best signal of any guitar that I've personally owned. But the one I currently love the most is the best balance of what it sounds like in the room plus what the signal is like. I'm using a Seagull Entourage CE. So this is a very reasonably priced guitar. It can be found used for somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 ish. You certainly can find deals. Occasionally find it for less than that. Somewhere in the sort of $300 to $400 range. And workhorse. Sounds beautiful, very comfortable, great signal, has an onboard tuner. So this is another thing that you need. You must have a tuner of some sort. Hopefully it's part of your guitar and it's just part of the pickup package. Or you got to have a snark. You got to have some way that at any time when you are hearing that it's out of tune, you're ready to go. You could be using your phone. It's a little bit of a delay, but you got to have something. You have to have a solution for how you're going to be in tune 30 to 60 seconds from now. So be wary, have that worked out. Moving on. The next thing I think you need to have is you should have a microphone that is better than an SM58. And if you don't know what I mean by this, SM58s are ubiquitous in the industry. They are the microphone you're going to find in house sound systems from here to Timbuktu, and 90% of the venues that I've played where there's house sound and house microphones, these are the house microphones. It's a good microphone. There's a reason that they're everywhere. They're rugged, they're decent, they're reliable, you get an okay sound out of these. There are things I don't like about these. They have a real tight pattern, so for a vocalist like me, you have to be pretty close to these. I did a shootout comparing, this is sort of the baseline versus a whole bunch of other mics I had, and I had a bunch of other options that came out of that shootout that I would, I'd stand by to this day. But I'm going to actually steer you towards one mic that's not in there just because these days it is more available as a used option. I see it popping up everywhere, and it's a great alternative. And that is the Sennheiser E835. It is charcoal body, black grill. This is a lot better than an SM58 as a vocal mic. And what I mean, in what way is it better? It's better that it has a nicer pattern, a wider pattern that you can use as a vocalist who's going to be using actual sophisticated mic technique, proper mic technique. It's got a real nice close proximity. It's got good distance effect. It's got good detail. Like you can really hear what's going on better than you can with an SM58. This is one I definitely stand behind. There are others that I like better, but they're a little harder to find or a little more expensive. This is comparably priced in the used market to an SM58 and outperforms consistently. So this is the kind of thing that I would recommend you have, because the point here is that if you don't, because the next thing I'm going to talk about is having your own sound system where you dial everything in the way you want. But if you're not using your own sound system and you see there's an SM58, hey, you want to have something that you can swap in that'll fit in the same mic cradle, that is going to give you a better instrument, because the microphone is one of your instruments, and a better experience. So this is the kind of thing you need. You can of course get out there and experiment or find something else. And again, I have some other recommendations for other things that I like. I also like the Audix OM2, which I did another video about when somebody gave me the opportunity to try those out. There's a lot of options out there, but the point is, hey, you got to have your own microphone. Now, the final thing, as I've kind of alluded to, gear holding you back, you don't have your own sound. You're a singer-songwriter. Most of the gigs that are out there available for you to actually take, most of the opportunities that you want to get in front of new ears, don't have their own sound. Most venues do not have house sound. Big venues do with big stages, sure. And you will, of course, be sometimes blessed with playing somewhere where there is sound, or where you're on a bill and someone else is providing sound and you're piggybacking on that. Absolutely. But that's the kind of thing I see going on with these talented people that I know. Is in addition to that, there are a couple people I know who don't have that acoustic electric guitar covered, and people are having to do stuff to get their instrument heard. And I see those challenges unfold in real time, and I see that be an issue. Or people who, you don't see it as much if you can show up and use an SM58, then great. But let me tell you, that's my secret weapon, is showing up with a much better microphone. I know that I'm going to really command a better performance. I'm going to be showcasing my voice at its absolute best, as opposed to through the SM58. It'll still be good through the SM58, but I know that I can significantly enhance what I'm delivering if I'm using a microphone with a higher level of fidelity. And finally, I know I can play any gig that's out there because I've got my own sound system. And I've had it since the beginning of being a singer-songwriter. I recognized early on in having a band in Denver, I was going to not be able to play some of the kinds of opportunities that were available to us, house shows, etc., if I didn't have sound. You've got to have a sound system. And these days there are so many really good all-in-one options that are sort of built tailor-made for this purpose. And I've covered some that have passed through my hands. I've done a comparison of a couple of acoustic products, the A1000, the A40 versus the Fender Acoustasonic 90. And that's a separate video I have. I currently use the A1000 for almost everything, and I use it because it has a couple extra features that really work well for me, although I also really love that Fender Acoustasonic 90. You got to have something like that. And so that's what I'm going to recommend you do, is go pick on one of those all-in-ones. Go in and try out a bunch and see which one suits you. Think about what you need. You need to amplify your guitar. You need to amplify your voice at the same time. In addition to those things, having your own sound means having the requisite accoutrements. So you need to have a mic stand that is happy to be here. And what I mean by that is not one that's all fallen down and loose and you put a mic on it and it starts to sag and you're constantly pushing the thing up and you got to get it at exactly the right angle and not bump it. You need a mic stand, you tighten it down and it stays where you put it. And if you don't have that, you need to go get one because they are cheap. You need to have cables, backup cables. You need to have a power strip and an extension, power strip with a surge protector and an extension cord. These are things that you're gonna, like, it's rare that I don't have to use that. Do you want to be, oh yeah, our power is all the way over here. You can't always be parked at the power or counting on that there's three outlets here, or there's even an outlet that has two plugs. You got to have power covered to some degree. You got to have everything that you need, and ideally a backup of everything that you need. Of course, having a guitar stand that you carry around with you is probably a good idea. A music stand if you need it. These are kind of icing on the cake. I go through. I have another video where I talk about like what my gigging bag is. What my gig bag as a singer-songwriter contains, just the singer-songwriter stuff, not what's in my guitar bag, but just the singer-songwriter stuff. And maybe that can sort of stir your juices and get you thinking about some other stuff that maybe that you want, or some of the extras. In any event, that's the gear that I think you need. That's the gear that if you don't have it, in some sense, may be holding you back. You can, of course, do better than that. You can get more specific and you can get what's perfect and right for you. But if you don't have that stuff, you got to be really asking yourself why you don't have that stuff. And I would be saying you're probably missing out on some opportunities where you kind of need that stuff. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that gives you kind of a primer, some stuff to think about. And till next time, I'll see you later.